So now I have 20 of the white, and I'm going to look at my graph, and we are on 5, fifth row, and we need 2 of the red, and then we're going to change color to the darker brown. So you can see that my red loop, there's a little bit of a gap between the red and the white stitch, so I'm going to take and gently pull on the red stitch to bring the stitches closer together, and then I'm going to go into the next vertical stitch and bring up a loop, and then I'm going to go into the next stitch, vertical stitch, and bring up a loop, and then I need my darker brown color, so I'm going to go ahead and bring up a loop with the darker brown, since that's the color that I want to use in the tail. And then I'm going to tie a knot. Then you're going to drop the red, and then we only need 1 loop with the darker brown color. So I'm going to look at the graph again, and I need 1 red, 1 black, and then 2 red. So I'm going to go into the next vertical stitch, bring up a red, and then a black. So now when I'm picking up the black color, you'll see that there's a little bit of a gap, so I'm going to gently pull the stitches closer and then bring up the black loop. Then I'm going to bring up 2 of the red, and then the rest are going to be the white. So go ahead, bring up the rest with the white loops, and then come back. So you can see the difference with the little butterfly clips. So that was a really helpful tip that Christine gave. She's one of the viewers that likes Tunisian crochet as well. So now you're ready to count and go back. So I'm just going to do this with you. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to drop the white, pick up the red, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, and 40, which is what we want. So now we're moving up to row 6, and with row 6 you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the white colored loops before you change to the branch, brown color for the branch. So I have 1 on, 2 loops, 3, 4. And so again, one person that was watching one of my Tunisian crochet and trying to make one of the Tunisian crochet blocks said that hers had holes in it, and it's probably because she didn't control the gap that's sometimes created with the color changes. So here you can see I'm ready to drop. Actually, we need one more white loop, but before I pick up my next white loop, I want to close this gap first. And remember, you don't want to pull it too tight. You just want to have a normal distance between the two colors. And then you just go right into that vertical stitch. And I still need a white. So I'm going to bring up a loop with the white so that I have 5. And then I'm going to look at the graph again to make sure how many of the brown I need for the branch. So I need 3. So I'm going to drop the white color, and then I'm going to make 1, go into the next stitch for my second, and the next stitch for my third brown color before I resume back with the white colored yarn. So go ahead and follow the graph and make the number of white colored loops that you need before you reach the tail. So now I've reached the tail and it's 1 out with the red, and I need 2 of the red. So I'm going to go into the next stitch and pick up my red color, make 2 with the red color, then I'm just looking at my graph, so I have the 2. Now I need the brown and then red and then black. So you can see how I gave a gentle tug, not too tight again. You don't want to distort the image. So I have brown, and then you can see that where the color changes occur, you have a little slanting that occurs with your stitches. So here I'm just going to point them out with my tapestry needle. So here you can see the vertical stitch is slanted, so you don't want to miss that stitch. Also, your red stitch is slanted as well, where the color changes occur. So as a beginner, just make sure that you don't miss those stitches. So after the brown, and look at my graph, I need a red. So I'm going to make sure I go into the vertical stitch of the brown, drop my brown yarn, pick up my red. And another question that someone had asked me is, do I go in front of or behind the previous color? I usually drop the previous color and then bring the color that I want across the top of it like that, and then bring up a loop. So that's just how I do it. And then I need the black color, so I'm going to go into the next vertical stitch and then bring up the black colored yarn. If it gets too tangled, your yarn, you can just cut it from the skein. So I'm going to give it a gentle tug. Bring up a black colored yarn. And then I'm going to look at my chart again. So I'm on 6, and I had the brown, the red, and the black, and now I need 3 red before I switch back to the white. So I'm going to go into the next vertical stitch. You can see how I'm not skipping any of the vertical stitches. It's really easy to do, and I've done my fair share of frogging, so that's why I count a lot when I go back to make sure, because I've had to go back several rows, which is not fun. Undo several rows anyway. I have a separate video tutorial that shows you how to unwork your Tunisian crochet if you made a mistake. Someone had asked me that question as well. So I made a video tutorial showing you how to undo your work. So now I have my 3 red, and I'm going to resume the rest with the white colored yarn. So I'll let you go ahead and finish the rest of the white colored yarn, since now you can see how I worked through the colors of the tail, and you can see how our tail is turning out really nice and pretty. So now this is going to be my last row where I'm going to count with you and go over the color changes with you, because I've done that several times, so you should be able to do it on your own now. So this will be my last row where I'll actually do it with you and show you how I color change and count. So again, you always start with 1 loop, 2, 3, and you can see how I hold my fingers too. I'm going to back out so you can watch. So I was on 3. You can see how I'm holding my hand on the other side, and I love this pencil grip. So I have 3. I'll try to see if I can back out even more for you. Four, 5, 6. So now I'm going to bring the camera in so you can kind of see. I'm on 6, and I'm starting the color changes. I'm going to drop the white. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. See how I'm pulling them together? Pulling the stitches together. And I'm holding it 15 with my thumb and my other finger. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, and 40. So we've made the row correctly and finished with the stitch count that we wanted. So now you can see how my work is looking, and there are no holes in it, which is what you want, and it might take some practice. So don't expect to have perfection, the very first time, and it may take a couple practices, but that's how easy it is to Tunisian crochet. And like I said, I'm going to be working through the whole graph. I'm just going to be showing you major parts, so I'll let you work the majority of it on your own now that you know how to do the color changes and all of that. So I'm going to give you extra pointers where I think you need to have them, but now we're ready to move up to row 7. So now we're on row 7 of the graph. So you just look at the graph, you see how many white loops that you need. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 white loops, and then we're changing to 3 of the brown. So go ahead and bring up those loops onto your Tunisian crochet hook. So now I'm ready to look at the graph again. So now you just need to see how many white loops that you need, and instead of counting them, what you can do is just kind of look and see where the tail begins. So the tail begins 2 blocks out from the previous red on the previous row. So that's another way that you can do it. So go ahead and get the white blocks that you need until you reach the white loops on your hook up to where the tail starts. So now I've gotten all the white loops onto my hook, and I know that 2 blocks out I'm going to start with the red. So I'm going to go ahead and get the red. I'm going to work these color change stitches with you. So on row 7 I need 3 red, and then you switch to the darker brown, a red, a black, and then 3 red. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up the 3 red. You can see I have a little bit of a gap, so I'm just going to kind of gently pull. And I use my thumb and my finger to hold. I'm actually pressing a little bit of pressure on the fabric so it doesn't move. And I hold that gap steady where I want it. There's my second and my third. Now I need one of the brown. So I'm going to drop the red, pick up my brown, gently give it a tug because I want the spaces to be pretty close, not too close. Again, you don't want to distort your tail image. So 1 brown, then 1 red. And then 1 black. And then 3 red. Don't skip one of the vertical stitches. That'll throw off your count, but you'll catch it if you count, like I said. I know it can be tedious, but it's a lot better to count than to have to undo your work and redo it again. A lot of wasted time. So now I'm ready to finish up with my white blocks. So go ahead, finish up your white blocks, and then we'll take a look and see what our work looks like. Okay, so now you should have all 40 loops onto your Tunisian crochet hook, and you should be able to count your way back to the start of row 8. So now this is how your work should look. It looks really good. Oh, hooked my skein. You don't have any gaps in your work. This is a close-up of the tail. Looks really good. So now you're ready to work row 8. So row 8 is pretty similar to the previous row. So I'm going to go ahead and let you work row 8 on your own. So here you can count the white and the browns and then work that row on your own. There's more going on with row 9, so I'll work that row with you. But row 8, go ahead and finish row 8 and then come back. So it's looking good. I just finished row 8 and now I'm moving on to row 9. So now you just look at your graph. We're on row 9, and row 9 requires 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 white blocks, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the brown for the branch. So go ahead, finish up to that point for row 9. So now you can see that I finished my brown branches color and also the white color to start. And now you need 3 blocks of white colored yarn. So here you can see how you went up to, on row 9, you went up to here with the white loops and then the brown loops for the branch. But now you need 3 of the white loops. So the white loops, I don't like to stretch that far, so you're going to need to cut. So here I still have quite a bit of yarn on here, so I'm going to go ahead and leave a good amount for the front portion to work with. I'm going to go ahead and cut that, and then I'm going to start with my new yarn. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up a loop in the next block over, or stitch over, vertical stitch, and bring up a loop, and then I'm just going to take and tie a knot. And then I just need 3 of the white. So I'm going to go into the next vertical stitch and bring up another white loop. Next vertical stitch for my 3rd white loop. And then I'm going to look and see, now I need my red color. So I'm going to see if I can stretch my red color over, which I don't really want to do that. It's still quite a bit of a distance. So I'm going to go ahead, and my red is still attached to the skein, so I'm just going to pull a large amount off. And don't worry if you pull too much off and then you don't need that red from that where you had that color before, because you can always, as you're working your design, you can cut a previous color and bring it up if you need more of that color. So I'll show you what I mean by that when we run into that problem. But for now, I'm going to leave a little amount of red on that portion where I'm going to need it. And then I'm going to bring up the red with my yarn that's still attached to the skein. So I'm going to go into the next stitch over, bring up a loop with my red, and then just tie a knot. So for me, this is easy. I really like this method. And I made my Minecraft was my first Tunisian crochet afghan that I made years ago, and it's still holding up. So, and I gave that to my nephews, and he loves it and still uses it, and it's still staying strong. So now I need to see how many red loops I need. So I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the red. So go ahead and bring up your 7 loops that you need with the red, and then come back. So now I have 5 loops, and that brings me to my red portion of the tail. You can see that I have a little bit of a gap there. So I'm going to go ahead and drop my red now, and I'm going to pick up the red on the tail. So that portion on the tail where I left some red. So I gently pulled the stitches together, And then I'm going to finish up the next two with the red that I left. And that will give me the 7 red. And then I'm just going to take a quick look at my graph. Now I need one of the dark brown, a red, and the black, and then 3 red. So I'm going to go and get my dark brown. I'm going to give a gentle pull on the dark brown. Bring up a loop. And then I'm going to go into that vertical stitch of the dark brown. Remember, you don't want to skip your stitches from the previous row. Sometimes that's easy to do when you're first starting. And then I'm going to bring up with the red. And then I need the black. Gentle pull on the black, bring up the black, and then I need 3 red. So I'm going to go into that vertical stitch of the black on the previous row, bring up a red loop, next vertical stitch from the previous row, bring up a red loop, and next vertical stitch from previous row, bring up a red loop. Then the rest are the white colored loops. So go ahead, finish the rest of row 9, counting back to the beginning to start with row 10. So now you should be on row 10, and this is how your work should look so far. So you're going to look at your graph for row 10, and you could see that you're 1 in from the previous row with the brown color, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the white blocks before you change to the branches brown color. So I have 1 loop on my crochet hook. I'm going to go into the next vertical stitch for my second loop, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 7th. And now I'm ready to make 1 more of the white block. Now you can see that the brown color pulled away a little bit, the stitch from the vertical stitch from the white vertical stitch. So you're going to take that yarn color from the brown and just gently pull it so that the stitches are closer together. Now someone had told me that they had holes in their Tunisian crochet work, and it may be because they allowed the gap to get too large and didn't correct it. So you just have to gently pull the stitches, not too tight. Like I said, you don't want them to be too close together. You want the average spacing. So the average spacing is about 1 centimeter between the 2 vertical stitches. So now I gently pulled the stitch closer, and I'm going to bring up a loop with my white colored yarn. And then that brings me my 8 loops that I needed before switching to the brown colored yarn. So I'm going to drop the white colored yarn, go into the next vertical stitch, and then pick up the brown branch color for the yarn. So then you have to just make sure how many of the branch colored brown loops that you need. So I'm going to go look at my graph. And I'm looking at row 10, and I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the brown color before I switch to a yellow. So I need 7 of the brown. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So now you can see that there's a gap with the white colored yarn. So I'm just going to drop my brown colored yarn. I'm going to gently pull on the white colored yarn. to bring the stitches closer together, about a centimeter closer together. And then I'm going to go into that vertical stitch, and then I'm going to bring up the yellow colored yarn because that's what's next on the graph. So I'm going to pull up the yellow colored yarn, and then I'm going to take and tie a knot, and I'm going to use my brown colored yarn because that will keep the stitches closer together. So again, you don't want to tie too tightly, just enough so that the yellow yarn can't come undone. And then you have your yellow colored yarn, and then you look at your graph again, and now you're going to be changing to the red colored yarn. So you need the red colored yarn for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 before you change colors. So now I'm going to go into the next stitch and bring up the red colored yarn. So again, I'm going to gently pull the red colored yarn to bring the stitches together, and then bring up a loop, and see how I hold my thumb to stabilize the work so it doesn't pull or distort, and then I just bring up a loop. So that's 1, 2, 3, and again I'm being careful not to miss any of the vertical stitches from the previous row, and you can see how all of the vertical stitches are in line. Now here you can see there's a little bit of a gap, and that's because I had switched. I needed more of the red, so I had switched to the red color. So I'm going to switch at this point, just kind of bring in the stitch closer, and then just start crocheting with that red yarn where I had left off before. And then that brings me 3, 6, 8. And then I'm ready to switch to the brown colored yarn. So I'm going to go into the next stitch, and then bring up the brown colored, but first I'm going to gently pull it and then bring up the brown colored yarn. And then I kind of adjust the stitches so that there's no gaps. Then you can see after the dark brown color you'll need 1 red, 1 black, and then 2 red. So I'm going to bring up a red, and you'll notice that it appears as if the vertical stitch is right under the brown that I just pulled up, which it's not. So you have to be careful with the angling of the stitches when you color change. So make sure you don't skip over a vertical stitch. So I'm going to drop the brown colored now because I need 1 of the red. And then again you can see how you have angling of the vertical stitch. Don't miss it. So I'm going to pick up the vertical stitch, and then I'm going to drop the red and pick up the black, and just gently pull on the black to bring the stitch together, but not too hard. Bring up a color with the black, and then I just needed 2 red. And then the rest is going to be the white colored yarn. So I'm going to drop the red, gently give a tug on the white. I'm holding the work with my thumb and then bringing up a loop. And then I'm just going to bring up the white yarn loops the rest of the way. So go ahead, finish the rest of the row. And then count your way back to make sure you have 40. And then, actually I'll count with you just to show you the color changing again for this row. So now I'm going to count with you back to finish the 10th row. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Color change time. 12, 13. Color change. 14. Color change. 15. Color change. 16. Color change. 17. 18. 19. 20. 21. 22. 23. 24. Color change. 25. Color change. 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, color change, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, and 40, which is what we want. That means we've completed the row 10 successfully. It's looking good. And now we're ready to move up to row 11. So we need 9 of the white loops for row 11. So far I have 8. I need 11. So I'm going to take, you can see the large gap between the vertical stitches. I'm going to bring those closer together. Nine, 10, 11. Actually, I needed 9, so take off the extra 2. I only needed 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now I need 1, 2, 3, 6 of the brown before I switch to 3 of the yellow. So now I'm going to get 6 of the branch colored brown. And then I need 3 of the yellow. There's 1. 2, 3. Then I need one of the brown for the branch. And I can drag it across because it's not that far. So I'm going to drag it across and just bring up a loop with my brown branch color. And then I need one yellow. Then 5 red. And I'm going to see which one's attached to the skein. So this one's attached to the skein. I'm going to leave that there for now, and then just use some of my other red that's not attached to the skein of yarn. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I need 1 black and 2 red. And then the rest will be with the white colored yarn. So here you can see I'm about to run out. So I'm just going to show you how I just go into the next loop, drop that yarn that's running out, and then I'm going to grab the skein of yarn, and it's getting low. So I'm just going to unravel a little bit to where I left off on the previous white colored portion, and then just cut it. And then I'm just going to start right where I left off, and then I'm just going to tie a knot. And then just resume, bringing up loops with the rest. Now the other thing that you can do is kind of lay your work down and just kind of keep track of where you have your different color changes. So here I have plenty of white yarn for when I color change here. And then this one, it looks like I haven't used it, so I have some yarn here that I can come back to, so I'll remember that I have some white yarn that I can use when I run out further up on the design, so I'll keep that there. And then the red yarn here, this one is attached to the skein. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut this one and then tie a knot. And then when I need the skein for the red colored yarn, I'll come back to it. So then I'm just going to take the red yarn and wrap it around the skein so I can come back to it later. And then I have my dark brown colored yarn that I might come back to later, as well as the black colored yarn and the red colored yarn. So I just kind of keep track of what I have so I don't waste the yarn. And then I'm just going to count with you back to show you, mainly to show you the color changes. So I know earlier I wasn't going to count back, but I'm just going to do a couple more just to show you, and then I'll stop with the counting, because then you'll get used to the color changes. I'm not going to count out loud. So the color changes are easy. You can see that you have one of the white, one of the red, and the color change is always going to be that second color. Trying to find that color. A little bit of fuzz in there. And I have the 40, so I completed row 11 with the correct number that I needed, and it's looking good. So now you should be able to work row 12. Go ahead and work row 12 and then come back. So I'm on row 12, and you may have finished, but I just wanted to show you one thing. So I have the 14 of the white loops, and then I need the dark brown. So I'm pretty much over here. I'm not going to need the dark brown. Actually, I will. Let me look at the graph. So here's where I use the dark brown over here. So I may use that dark brown for there. So I'm going to get a new dark brown for the front of the bird. So I'm going to bring a new yarn for the front for the dark brown, and then just join that where I left off. This will be part of the bird, the brown color in the bird. So now I have the dark brown, and then I can resume the rest of the graph. So I'll just break in periodically and show you a different area on the block if I need to show you. And after I finish the yellow, I realized that I need the branch color here. So I'm done with the branch color on this side. So I'm going to go ahead and take and tie a knot with the nearest loose yarn end, which is this dark brown. So I'm going to go ahead and tie a knot there. And then I'm going to cut the branch brown and then use this color where I need it further along on the graph. And then just tie a knot here. That way I don't waste the color. And then I can just resume. So the next color on the graph is the yellow. And again, this is row 12. So I'm still on row 12, and I was going back and everything's going well, but I'm running out of yarn. So if this happens to you on your way back, so here you can see I'm on my way back, I'm going to go ahead, and I don't have very much left of my previous skein, so I'm not going to cut it. I'm just going to leave that where I left off. And I'm going to bring my new skein in, and I'm going to join coming back. So I'm going to show you this because it's joining on the way back. So all I'm going to do is bring up a loop with my new yarn, but remember I'm going back, so I need to go through 2, and then I can turn it over and then tie a knot with the previous loose yarn end. So that's how you would join coming back if you need more yarn. So I'm still on row 12. So now I have more yarn loaded up, and then I'll just continue and finish up the row. So I'm going to bring my camera in for a close look so you can see how my work is looking. The edges are still straight. That means that my stitches are all vertically lined up, which is what you want. And also, if you've been counting on the way back and getting 40, then you know you still have the 40 block stitch count that you need to follow your graph. So at any point you don't have the 40 count or your lines aren't vertical, unfortunately you're going to have to go back because it's just going to mess up your work. It's better to correct it now than further on into your work. So now you can go ahead and work row 13. And then when you come back, I'll go ahead and work row 14 with you. But go ahead and try to work row 13 on your own. So on row 13, I just wanted to show you that the red, I need a red color here. Instead of using the red color that I already have, I'm not going to pull it across. I'm going to leave that there for when I need the red at that point. And I'm going to bring in a new red from the skein. So this one's still attached to the skein of yarn, and I'm just going to bring up a loop with that color. And then you also want to be careful that you don't have too much of a gap. So I'm going to pull that a little bit closer, and then I'm going to pull up with the red. And then I'm going to tie this loose yarn end to the brown colored yarn because that's the previous stitch, and then that will keep the stitch close together so there won't be a gap. So again, I'm on row 13. And this is what I have so far. So now I have the red in place, and then I'm going to need 2 yellow. So I'm going to go bring up my yellow yarn now. And I kind of gave it a gentle tug and brought up the yellow. And then you could see how there's no gaps there. And then I just resume. So I just finished row 13 and it's coming out really well. Now for the yarn ends, you can cut your skeins of yarn if it's getting too tangled for you. And this is about the length I like to keep mine. If you don't like tying the knots, then some people like to use the little bobbins to wrap up the ends, but to me it gets all tangled and a pain, so to me it's much easier and faster just to do it this way. So you'll find your own technique and method and way of doing things. For me, I don't mind the knot tying because I never bury my loose yarns anyway and no one ever sees it. So now we're going to get ready to go through row 14. I'm going to work row 14 with you. So for row 14, I need 12 of the white, loops. So I have one, so now I have 12 of the loops on of the white. So now I need 2 dark brown before I switch to the red, which has 6 red. So 2 dark brown and then 6 of the red. So gentle pull. And then I need 6 red. Gentle pull of the red. And I still need more red, but I want to give a gentle pull to the yellow. Make sure that there's not too much of a gap. Three, 4. I still need 2 more, but I want to give a gentle pull to the brown branch. Now my brown branch yarn is getting very low, so I'm going to go ahead and tie that off too. So I gave it a gentle tug. I'm going to go ahead and bring up a red for my 5th. And then I'm going to go ahead and tie a knot with the brown branch color, because I'm going to be, when I get to the brown branch, I'll just bring up a new color. So far I have 5 of the red and 6. So I'm going to look at my graph again. So I had 6 of the red. Now I need 2 yellow, and then I need 2 of the brown branch. Now I need more of the brown branch, but at this point when you need a new color, you're always going to want to check and make sure you don't have any lower on your design, which I don't have any of the brown branch color left, so I have to bring in some more. So now I'm going to go ahead and bring up the brown branch color. And I'm going to tie it to the yellow, the previous color yellow, the previous stitch. That just helps to keep the stitches spaced evenly and together. So I'm going to double check with my graph. I believe I need 2, but let me just double check. So I'm on row 14, and I just did 2 of the yellow. I need 2 of the brown branch, 2 of the red, and then 2 of the dark brown. So there's 1, 2, and then 2 of the red. So I'm going to go ahead and pull. Let me just see if I have any red. Yeah, I do have red, so I don't want to pull from the other red portion. I want to use my red that I have right there. So I have 1, 2, and then I need 2 of the dark brown. And then the rest are going to be the white colored loops. So go ahead, bring up the rest of the white colored loops to finish half of row 14. So now we have half of 14 finished. I'm going to go ahead and count with you on the way back. I'm not counting out loud. I'm just going to show you my hand movements and where I make color changes to finish 14. And I am counting, but just not out loud. And I finished with 40, which is always a good feeling. Then you can just kind of look over your work, and the design is turning out really pretty, like it should. It's matching the graph. So now, let's see, we just finished row 14. So the rest of the rows, I'll let you finish row 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and then when you get to row 20, come back. That's when we add the leaves in. So on row 20, go ahead and come back. I'll let you try to work all of the rows up until row 20. If there's anything in there that I think I need to show you, I'll come back in and just let you know. But everything, I've already taught you all of the tricks with the previous rows, so you should be able to finish up to row 20 and then come back.